I didn't expect silence to be the loudest part of this story. No sparks. No dramatic hum. Just a small device on a cluttered workbench, and a question that wouldn't let go. What happens when curiosity meets a claim everyone argues about? So, I built a mini Maxwell-style generator. Not to prove anything. Not to debunk anything. But to observe. To test assumptions. To listen to what the experiment would actually say instead of what the internet insists it means. And almost immediately, something unexpected happened. The first discovery wasn't electrical, it was conceptual. I realized how easily big ideas collapse when they're forced into small builds. Scaling changes everything. Materials behave differently. Tolerances suddenly matter. The same principle that looks promising on paper can become unstable, inefficient, or outright impossible when reduced to a tabletop version. That alone changed how I viewed online demos forever. Then came the second discovery. Energy doesn't hide where you want it to. Every measurable output had a very clear source. Heat, motion, magnetic interaction. Nothing appeared from nowhere, and nothing self-started. The system always asked for something first before it gave anything back. And when it did, the losses were impossible to ignore. That's when the third discovery quietly took over. Most people aren't really talking about devices, they're talking about hope. In comments, forums, and videos, I noticed that belief often fills the gaps left by missing data. When measurements aren't shown, narratives step in. When explanations get fuzzy, confidence somehow gets louder. And once hope enters the room, objectivity usually leaves. The fourth discovery was the most humbling. Measurement is everything, and almost nobody shows it. When I added proper instruments, the story became boring. Honest but boring. Voltages fluctuated. Outputs dropped under load. Efficiency behaved exactly like established physics predicts. No mystery. No miracle. Just engineering, messy, imperfect, and extremely unforgiving. And then came the fifth discovery, the one that mattered most. Curiosity is not the enemy of science. Blind belief is. Building this generator didn't make me cynical. It made me more careful. More respectful of real innovation. Because true breakthroughs don't fear testing. They invite it. As I shut the system down and logged the final readings, one thought stayed with me. If a technology really can change the world, it won't survive on excitement alone. It will survive repeatable tests, independent verification, and time. And that's where this experiment ends. Not with a revelation, but with clarity. Sometimes the most unexpected discovery isn't new energy, and even after the equipment was powered down, the experiment didn't really end. Because the real impact showed up later, when I started rewatching the videos that inspired this build in the first place. This time I noticed what I had missed before. The cuts. The missing measurements. The moments where a camera angle replaces a meter reading. That became impossible to ignore. I began comparing claims against controls. Inputs against outputs. What was said versus what was actually shown. And suddenly, patterns emerged. The same phrases. The same explanations. Different devices, but identical conclusions. All arriving without the one thing science demands most. Transparent verification. That led to another realization. Even failed experiments are valuable if they're honest. My mini generator didn't rewrite physics. But it did something far more useful. It exposed assumptions. It revealed how easily excitement can override rigor. And it showed me how fragile truth becomes when storytelling replaces evidence. And yet, this doesn't mean innovation is dead. Quite the opposite. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history began with ideas that sounded impossible. The difference? Those ideas survived scrutiny. They improved under pressure. They grew stronger the more people tried to tear them apart. That's the filter real technology passes through. So when people ask me now, did it work? I answer carefully. It worked exactly as physics said it would. And that response usually tells me everything I need to know about whether someone is searching for truth or just chasing wonder. Because wonder is easy. Truth is demanding. As creators, builders, and viewers, we carry responsibility. To question respectfully. to test honestly, to resist the pull of shortcuts, even when they promise something extraordinary. This wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about grounding curiosity in reality, so that when a real breakthrough finally arrives, we'll recognize it not by hype, but by evidence. And that's where this story will eventually lead. And understanding, I've learned, is rarely instant. It builds slowly, piece by piece, often in uncomfortable moments where expectations don't match results. After this experiment, I started documenting not just what worked, but what didn't. The dead ends, the recalibrations, the quiet failures that never make it into highlight reels. That process changed how I evaluate every new claim I see online. Now, when a video promises limitless power or revolutionary performance, my first question isn't, is this true? It's, what would have to be true for this to work? That single shift reframes everything. Because real engineering doesn't begin with conclusions, it begins with constraints. Materials have limits. Energy has costs. And systems, no matter how clever, always obey trade-offs. Ignore those and you're not innovating your storytelling. And yet, storytelling has power. It draws people in. It inspires. It motivates people like me to pick up tools, to experiment, to learn. Without those bold claims, I might never have built anything at all.
So I won't dismiss them outright.
I'll contextualize them. In fact, that's where this journey started to feel meaningful. Not as a verdict on any one device, but as a personal recalibration. A reminder that skepticism doesn't kill imagination. It protects it. Because when imagination is protected by evidence, it turns into progress. So, I kept the mini generator on my shelf. Not as proof of failure. Not as proof of success. But as a reference point. A physical reminder that curiosity deserves discipline, and that discipline makes discovery sustainable. And as new videos, new devices, and new promises continue to surface, this experiment quietly sits in the background, asking the same calm question every time. Show me. Not with hostility, not with ridicule, but with patience. Because the future won't be built by those who believe everything, or by those who dismiss everything. And that unfinished ending is intentional. Because the moment you declare final answer, learning usually stops. Since building this mini generator, I've noticed something else quietly changing: how people react when certainty isn't offered. Some want a verdict. A yes or no. A hero or a hoax. Ambiguity makes people uncomfortable. But in real experimentation, ambiguity is often where the most important thinking happens. That space between possible and proven is where progress lives. I began revisiting older breakthroughs with this mindset. Early aviation, radio waves, semiconductors. Each one passed through a long phase where results were inconsistent, explanations incomplete, and critics loud. But none of those survived on belief alone. They earned their place through replication. And replication is ruthless. It doesn't care who built the device. It doesn't care how good the story sounds. It only cares whether the result appears again under the same conditions when someone else tries. That's what separates demonstrations from discoveries. This small generator reminded me of that difference every time it failed to impress. Every time the numbers settled back into predictable ranges. Every time excitement gave way to measurement. And yet, I'm glad I built it. Because now, when a claim crosses my screen, I don't feel anger. I don't feel awe. I feel curiosity with structure. I want schematics. I want independent tests. I want load curves, not applause. That curiosity doesn't shut doors. It opens better ones. If a true breakthrough emerges tomorrow, something that genuinely challenges what we think we know, it won't need defenders in comment sections. It will have data. It will have peers. It will have repetition. Until then, experiments like this matter. They teach restraint. They sharpen thinking. They remind us that progress doesn't rush, and reality doesn't negotiate. So the generator stays right where it is. Not as an endpoint. Not as a trophy. But as a question waiting patiently on a shelf. And as long as that question remains, And time has a way of revealing things that excitement never can. Weeks pass, then months. The generator gathers a thin layer of dust, but the ideas around it keep moving. New papers are published. Old assumptions are refined. Some claims quietly disappear. Others evolve, becoming more precise, more cautious, more real. That's when you start to notice the difference between those chasing attention and those chasing understanding. One group keeps changing the story. The other keeps improving the explanation. I find myself paying attention to the second group now. The builders who admit losses. The engineers who show failed runs. The researchers who say, "We don't know yet," without embarrassment. That honesty feels rare, but it's contagious. And slowly, almost without realizing it, my own expectations change. I stop looking for revolutions. I start looking for refinements. A few percentage points of efficiency here. A cleaner measurement technique there. A smarter way to reduce noise, friction, waste. This is how real progress accumulates, quietly, invisibly, until one day it looks sudden from the outside. The mini generator taught me that breakthroughs don't announce themselves with certainty. They whisper through data, repeat themselves under pressure, and survive long after the cameras leave. So I keep observing, keep building,
Keep questioning.
not because I expect the next test to rewrite everything, but because each test sharpens the lens through which I see the future. And as long as that lens keeps getting clearer, this story still has more to reveal. And so, this is where the journey finally comes to a pause. Not because the questions are exhausted, but because the lesson is clear. Building a mini Maxwell-style generator didn't uncover hidden energy or overturn physics. What it uncovered was far more important: how easily belief can outrun evidence, and how powerful curiosity becomes when it's disciplined by measurement. Real innovation doesn't demand faith. It earns confidence. It survives scrutiny. It welcomes repetition. It gets quieter as it becomes stronger. This experiment didn't give me answers worth shouting, but it gave me understanding worth keeping. And in a world saturated with bold promises and instant conclusions, that may be the rarest outcome of all. So the generator stays on the shelf. The instruments stay ready. And the questions stay open. Because progress doesn't arrive as a miracle. It arrives as proof. And when that proof finally comes, we'll recognize it not by excitement,